Hi, welcome back to CS170. We're on to week 2. We just go through some housekeeping or admin here. So most of you probably, well, not most of you, people who are trying to get into this class, hopefully you were able to sort that out through the add drop period last week. So we should be all set going for the rest of the semester. So if you come back to our homepage, as usual, you can see the allow sections 1 to 11. I think we opened up a new section, so hopefully all the new people got in through that with section 9, I believe. For this first lecture, I converted the slides so you can see it here. So this is the week of September 5th here, and you can see the slides here that you can click on to. Okay, should have put my video on. So yeah, so let's go on to, let's see what's open for this week. So you can see on the fall schedule here, which is obviously starting off on Tuesday because of Labor Day. You got chapters 7 and 8 as the readings for this week. I posted something on the announcements. That's Vital Source seems to be the best place for you to get the textbook online. I think the price is quote unquote fairly reasonable, so you can check that out. These are the topics here. Recitations, they're going to kind of drill into the hex, decimal, and binary conversions, and numeric conversions. That's all kind of linked together here. And then here's your post date, due date, and accept until date. And your assignment is 25 points. Don't forget, last week we had some extra credit, which was your assignment. The free late doesn't apply, so do try to get it in this week if you want to get those couple of extra credit points there. And we'll come back to here for a second here. So you remember we have the modules. Okay. And you can see the week 2 resources, which is all about numeric conversion. Okay. And you can see all of that here. So the detail on what you need to do here, some videos and resources here. Okay. So there's a couple of things that you want to kind of take away from this week. You want to make sure you really got these conversions down. You have worksheets here also, but you want to make sure you get these things down because guarantee you it's going to be on the exam. Okay, and it's one of those things where like every year that we do this, you know, people have some difficulty on it, right? But look, we're doing essentially your decimal, which is the number system that you're all used to, 1 through 10, base. And then you have base 2, which is your binary. And then you have your hex, right? So it's really 3 number sets of one, of which one you're very familiar with. So you just need to know how to go from one base to another. So base 10 to base 2 or base 16, which is what hex is. Guarantee you that's on the exam, and it's really a mechanical type of thing. So, you know, I really suggest, and I'll kind of go through that a little bit later in one of my lectures, I really suggest that you really get the mechanics down of how to do that. It's really just a procedural thing. You follow the steps on how to do it, and there you go. Okay, of course, I like you to try to understand a bit about, you know, how like these different base work, but it's fine, right? So that's an important thing. This is definitely going to be in your exam. So do pay attention to these hex, binary, and decimal conversions. Okay. So let me see here. Of course, everybody knows about the office hours sections here. If I click on that, you'll see the office hours. You can, as I mentioned in an earlier lecture, you can appear in any of the lab hours. It doesn't matter if your TA is hosting it or not. And then you also have the office hours here. For myself, you have Friday, 6 to 8, but I can potentially do others if I'm given enough notice. Here's my email, and here's the WebEx for it. Now for my email, make sure you try to send me like an email a bit ahead of time to let me know, because I try not to have everybody show up my office hour at the same time. Okay. So what I'd like to have is like, you tell me and I tell you, oh, whatever, 6 o'clock is available, go join on that. Or I might say, yeah, there's some other people lined up then, so maybe why don't you join at 6:30 or something like that. So I prefer to have people do that so we don't just end up with a whole bunch of people jammed up in the room at the same time. So do let me know if you want to come in for office hours, and I'll make time for it. If it's some other day or hour, we'll see if we can make some time for you. And of course, I respond to my emails on a regular basis, and I think I tend to respond to them fairly quickly. The other thing to try to make use of is Piazza. Okay. We're supposed to be, the instructors or the TAs are supposed to be looking at these on a regular basis. We try to respond to them as quickly as we can. And the students in the class are welcome to post stuff in here too. If you have a response, the answer to something, go ahead, post it. Or you want to continue add on to a thread of some popular topic, go ahead and do that. Okay. So I think that kind of knocks out all of the logistics there. I mentioned the thing about the second chance policy on one of my other videos. People ask me about my extra credit. I will be as I mentioned before, I post a number of smaller videos. That's a way I like to do things, because I think people don't like to sit around for like a whole hour or 2-hour lecture. And in one of those videos, I'll probably post something or I'll probably say something about, what is the extra credit for this week. So that's kind of my way of, getting you to pay attention or log in to watch the videos. Okay. The TAs, I think some of them are doing stuff with Google Sheets and whatever. Again, they'll be tracking attendance. And that's their way of tracking attendance, right? It's that you've watched the video, right, for asynchronous. Okay. So do try and do that. If you have any questions, concerns, make sure you email me as soon as possible. Okay. And, I think the other thing I'd like to mention before I kick off into actual lecture is that, we do take feedback pretty seriously. We do try to look to continuously improve. So you will be getting like student surveys and they'll ask for your feedback. But, if I just kind of depend on that or we just kind of depend on that, it's a little bit too late for you, right? If there's a suggestion that you have on how to make things better, you should let us know sooner rather than later. Okay. Otherwise, it only helps the class after you, not the current class. So do let us know as soon as you can. I welcome the feedback. Just pop me email or whatever, and we'll do our best to make the class as useful for you as possible. Okay. All right. Let's go. So here we are. We're on chapter 7, and I'm going to break this up into a couple of different videos. So let's go ahead with this. All right, so this first idea that we're talking about is the idea of digitizing information, right? And what does that mean, right? For our purpose, that means making things zeros and ones, so representing things as zeros and ones. Okay, so in the past, of course, everything was done pretty much by people, right? People are doing different things, and that's great, although it doesn't really scale to big numbers, right? And so one example of that is looking at things like taking the census, okay? And so one thing you want to make a note of, and that's probably something that will also pop up on your exam, this is a little bit like sort of a history class type of thing, is this person, Herman Hollerith, okay? And among other things, but probably one of the things he's known for is digitizing census data, okay? So before he came along, it would take 8 years to process the data by hand. And they were asking less questions too. So, and if you look at what we currently do right now, we're asking way more questions, right? I think we're asking something like 50 questions or something like that. So, we're asking more questions. We obviously have way more people now than back then. What you're looking at right now in terms of like doing census is practically impossible or hugely labor intensive if we were to process it all manually, right? People fill out some questionnaire, everybody's opening it up, looking at it, and then, storing the data somewhere, probably a piece of paper or whatever. So to digitize that is a huge advance, makes it much more scalable. We're able to collect more data from more people. When it comes to, in this case, we're talking about census data. Okay. And so how did they do that? So back then they didn't have like, the digital computers that we have now. So what they did was they filled out punch cards. Right. And then you can see up here at the top, that's an example of a punch card, right? And I'll talk about like, the fact that you punched a hole versus no hole, what does that mean? Okay. But all you really care about is that there's two states. In this case, 0 and 1, right? Or in the punch cards case, either you have like the piece of paper there from the card itself, or you have a hole there. Okay. In each of these cases, you're talking about zeros and ones, binary state, essentially two, okay? And we'll go more into this a little bit later. But for the purpose of this, for your studies, 1890, right, or at least you can remember late 1800s, Herman Hollerith, the census, and the fact that before this came along, it took essentially near a decade to process it by hand, which, if you do a census every 10 years, you're not going to keep up with that, right? When the population gets bigger. Okay. All right. So abstraction. All right. So this idea is to basically simplify things based on who is the user that's using this thing. Okay. So key point here, abstraction hides complexity. Okay. And you can see this, right? So there's like two different people, right? And what do they see when they look at this cat? Okay. So you're on the left-hand side, you can see this, and you're on the right-hand side, you can see this, right? So, I like to maybe draw an analogy to maybe some of you drive a car, right? So when you get in drive in a car, you step on the brake or you turn the steering wheel, maybe you turn the steering wheel, and the car does something, right? Either the car turns or the car stops or slows down or whatever. But do you really care whether the car is like drive-by-wire or what the actual mechanicals is going on when you step on the brake and how that translates into the car stopping or the car steering, right? You really don't know, and you really don't care as a driver, right? All you care is that the car has certain things available to make it do certain things, right? A steering wheel to turn the car, and maybe a pedal for you to stop the car. Okay, how it does it, basically people don't care, right? And so you apply a similar type of concept to computers, right? The computer, if you look at it, is like many layers of what we call the technical stack, right? Or the technology stack. So when you move your mouse around, right, how that actually translates into your cursor moving around the screen, or when you hit the keyboard, and how that translates into data in your computer, you probably don't care. For most people, they really don't care, right? And so that's what abstraction is about. It kind of takes things down and distills it to what's important for the particular user and what they're doing. Okay. So this point, hiding complexity, right? So that's important. So you can see here, right, on the left here, you can see a whole bunch of houses, and you can see sort of like the names of the streets and, you know, Rutgers, New Brunswick and whatnot, right? So yeah, that's fair enough, right? You have all that information. You know, and maybe for your purpose, you probably only care that you want to maybe go to the bus stop, right? In this case, right? Or you want to find a parking deck, right? You're looking for some parking. You probably not 100% caring about, well, what type of roof does this house has, or there's a whole bunch of trees over here. There's a park over here, you know, whatnot, like essentially this satellite view of things, right? So like a lot of things in here, you probably, you know, it's nice to know, but you don't particularly care about it, right? You're probably just trying to, you know, maybe find some parking or find the bus stop or whatever, right? And so when you look at this on the right-hand side, you might see some information here, right? This one kind of tells you where to go, maybe go eat. You have the student center. You got a little bus thing here. You've got like, you know, the street names and whatnot, and that's it, right? You can see there's other information that's outside the campus, you know, other than a couple of main streets here, there's nothing else, right? And that's because you don't care, right? You probably don't need that information because, you know, maybe you're only living on campus or something like that, right? So the idea here is that they're sharing information that only you care about. It makes it a lot easier, right? You don't want to have like more information that you need, then your brain kind of gets overloaded a bit. Okay. So what's algorithms, right? So algorithm is basically a series of steps, um, you know, this point here being precise and systematic method to produce a specified result, okay? And, you know, just because you have the steps, it doesn't mean the steps are smart or not smart, right? So that's the point it's making here, okay? So you can think of it as like, you know, recipe to make a cake, right? Make some pizza or whatever, right? So that's your recipe is your algorithm. All right. So in the interest of cutting the video into a bite-sized chunk, I'm going to stop here before I go into basic P&A with presence and absence, which leads into the binary and hex and the conversions and stuff like that. So I'm going to cut it off now, and I'm going to cut a new video shortly. Okay. See you back here soon.